Hello everyone, Alistair Gold here. I hope your harness, your seatbelt, whatever you want to call it, is fully fastened because the Tottenham Hotspur roller coaster continues to go up and down. Just such a weird club. They really are. Terrific game on Monday night. Honestly, Tottenham Hotspur Stadium was absolutely rocking. Just like, how can it be this win-loss thing is just so bizarre. But what it did bring us on Monday was probably one of the closest versions of the Antonio Conte Tottenham Hotspur that certainly he once put out there. One that he you could tell he was quite proud to have his name attached to. And I feel that that's perhaps been a little bit the opposite, really, of what we've seen in recent days or weeks with Conte. I felt like some of his comments have been a little bit disconnecting himself a little bit with Spurs. Almost be like, yeah, I'm looking after you guys for a couple of months, but that's it. Like that kind of the caretaker chap that comes in and does a little bit of a job and then heads off. And I hope that's not going to be the case. But I just feel some of his words have felt a little bit like that. I'm a manager who deserves to be at a club winning trophies. Or, what was the other one he came out with? This isn't the Tottenham Hotspur I expected when I walked through the door. Things like that. It just kind of gives you this sense. Everything he's also saying has been about getting to the end of this season. Let's just get to the end of this season. This season, eh? What a little scamp it is. And it just kind of feels like, I don't know, he felt slightly disconnected from it all. And I just felt on Monday night, it felt like there was a reconnection. He felt, I don't know, there was a bit of a passion about it again. And, whether that was just the simplest thing in that, I know his wife, Elisabetta, and Vittoria, their daughter, were over from Italy. They were in the crowd watching the game. And obviously they would have had that lovely moment where they would have heard, or, for little Vittoria, to hear her dad's name being sung must be so cool around the stadium. And the entire stadium was singing, Antonio repeatedly, and he was applauding all four corners. There was that real connection. And I think I've seen a video of Elisabetta crying when something similar happened at either, I think it feel like it was Inter Milan. I think it was Inter Milan and they were singing his name and she got quite emotional. So I don't know whether there was a similar thing happened on Monday night when she was watching. But, it must be a very cool thing, especially from the family perspective, but for him as well. And, I just felt like, I don't want to go too much because, again, win-loss and all of that. But it felt like there was a bit of a reconnection of everything. And this was very much a Tottenham Hotspur that had Conte's fingerprints all over it. Look, a little bit like Leeds, Everton were dreadful. They were. But I would say there were also moments where Spurs made them look dreadful. Spurs played really well. They did. Apart from the first 15 minutes. First 15 minutes were a little bit iffy. But they kicked on from there, and especially second half, Everton just weren't even in the game. You look at it. So Spurs had more possession, 14 shots on goal, 7 on target, clean sheet. Everton had 6 shots, and none of them went anywhere near the goal. They didn't go on target. And obviously, you also had wing backs getting involved in creating. We're going to talk about them a bit later, and that is the ethos of the Conte system. The wing backs are so crucial. So, to have that, to have a 5-0 thrashing, to have the crowd so pumped up, it was great. It was such a good atmosphere. It just felt, this is it. It's mad. It's so difficult to kind of talk about Tottenham Hotspur right now because, you end up doing videos that are like the emotional roller coaster as well. It is difficult. It is. You don't want to get too carried away because you kind of know what the next match will bring. But I suppose it just comes with the hope, doesn't it, that the pattern gets broken. And hopefully that's the case at Old Trafford, on Saturday. I had his quote here. That was what I was going to say as well, because if you might remember, I asked him about when he got really angry after the Burnley match. And I asked him about the patience thing, whether he'd lost his patience. And he said, oh yeah, use the expression, I'm not a man who you want to go out for dinner with after a defeat, because, he's in a very dark place. He's a very unhappy man. He likes to be alone. And I found it interesting. He did they referenced that in his interview with Spurs TV after the game on Monday night. And he was like very much, oh yeah, no, you could definitely go out with me, go out to dinner with me tonight. You know, maybe even a disco. It was quite a funny little moment, just to show how, you know, as much as he doesn't like to admit it, he also goes on this emotional roller coaster. You know, I know there's strategy involved, and we're going to talk about some of his quotes and there potentially being a bit of strategy involved in them as well this time. But, you know, he was very confident. There was a different direction about him. There's kind of felt like a new focus. And whether it is just because he's doing that on his roller coaster or whether it is a different element of the strategy. Let me find his quotes so I can say it to you. Yeah, he's very much replaced the give me time and patience rhetoric, which just hasn't brought any consistency. And it's been replaced by this very different thing, which I'm going to read out. So he said, a good night for sure. For my players and our fans, I'm sure they're delighted for this performance. A very important 3 points for the table. We will try to fight until the end for the best possible position in the table. A top 4 race for sure, and we want to be involved. I think we are becoming stronger in many aspects. We have to avoid ups and downs, and to be a stable team, we have to take the responsibility now. We have to fight to reach the best possible position and to fight for a place in the Champions League. For sure it won't be easy. We need to have ambition. I think we can do this. I think we're ready to do this. And that's a change. That is a change. Whatever you kind of want to say about Conte, he's very much been about the time and patience angle. He's been about the fact that, you know, playing it down really, top 4. You know, saying, almost pretty much saying this team isn't good enough. And I wonder whether he's just thought, that's not working. That way of attacking this is not working. The team, you know, and I whether it's just a hindsight thing or whether it's obvious because it wasn't working, but, you know, if you're constantly going to tell a team that they're not good enough to get a top 4 yet, maybe that's going to start to seep in there and get into their kind of their way of thinking. And, you know, they're going to raise themselves for the big games, perhaps, to try and prove you wrong. But then maybe, I don't know, you become a little bit casual and laid back when it comes to the other games. I think that's kind of an element of what we've seen. So maybe when I talk about strategy, maybe that's what this is now. Maybe Conte just thought to himself, look, we've gone out there. We've played exactly how I want us to play. I've seen my work out there on the pitch, taken from the training pitches of Hotspur Way, put onto the pitch at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. Maybe we can do this. You know, the fixtures start stretching out now. You know, other than Brighton and the Arsenal game, whenever it is eventually rescheduled, every game now is going to be a little bit of time apart. They're going to be weekends. They're going to be 5 or more days apart. And we know that's when Conte excels. He has this record with Tottenham where when he's got more than 5 days or 5 or more days to prepare the team, they win the match all bar one time, which was a draw. When he has 2 or 3, maybe 4 days to prepare the team, they don't do so well. It's very mixed results. So yeah, maybe he just thought to himself, looking at it now, yeah, they need the challenge. I need a challenge. I mean, I asked him a question, just the opening question, really. I think it was something along the lines of, is this the kind of Conte Tottenham? Is this it? Was this the best example so far? I got a 5-minute answer, a very long answer. And I just want to give you the kind of the end of it. Here we are. Right, so this is the end. I'm not going to give you the 5-minute answer, don't worry. Story time of Alistair Gold is not going to be that long. Well, certainly there are more quotes to come, but in this section. Here we are. I want to get it right. There we go. Now we have 12 games to play until the end of the season. I listen, and you, the media, not me, ask me in every press conference about the top 4 race. I said to my players that it's right to take responsibility about this because I think that from when I arrived to now, we are stronger. In January, 2 players made us more complete. I think that we can fight. We can fight for this target. It's important to have this ambition. It's not right to hide our ambition. And okay, we'll see what happens. We'll try to do everything. At the end, we'll see what happens. Now we have only 12 games to play, not a trophy to play for. For this reason, it's right to take the responsibility. Me, myself, I have to be first. You know I don't like to speak about ambition and reaching a place in the Champions League because I like to play to win the league and win trophies. But in this situation, this could be our Champions League, our Premier League title, if we are able to reach 4th place. I like that. I like all of that. I know there's some people I've already seen saying, oh, they're playing for the Arsene Wenger top 4 title, are they? Or top 4 trophy. It's like, no. they're out of everything else. They need to have a target. They need to have belief. And I quite like the fact that he's just gone, yeah, you can do it. Go for it. Let's go. And it's much more galvanising. You've probably heard me say this and written it, but it has become a little bit negative. It's been the way Conte. I don't think Conte, this was what he meant as a byproduct, but I did say, if you're constantly saying how rubbish a team is when they lose, everyone's just going to start to think, oh, shut up, kind of thing. You're going to think like, okay, we get it. It's not a team in a good way right now. You don't want to be constantly reminded of how bad a team is. But yet, if you actually give them that little bit of confidence, who knows? It could all go completely wrong at Old Trafford, and it could be just another strategy that hasn't worked. But I prefer this strategy. I do. And, when we talked about the two players being complete, we're going to talk about Kulusevski in a moment, but I did think Rodrigo Bentancur, again, bang, straight in there into that midfield. And he's just so calm. He's got a bit of a Berbatov way about him. He's very laid back with the ball. Too laid back at times for a midfielder. Striker, you can maybe get away with it. But for a midfielder, there are occasions when he might bring the ball out of defence and play a very, that's how to put it, a laid back pass, which, gets cut out. And some people in Italy criticising that was something that he would get caught out maybe once or twice a match for. That's something that he's going to probably learn quite quickly in the Premier League. It's even faster and you can't get away with that too much. But on the whole, I think he does exude this calmness that he brings to the midfield. And, it was like night and day, the midfields. Winks and Højbjerg against Middlesbrough compared to Højbjerg and Bentancur against Everton. Everton just, they just weren't really in the race. They weren't really in the battle. And that's what you want. He has this kind of aggression, Bentancur, mixed in with this laid back. It's a strange paradox, but it's there. One moment, he could just do the simplest of touches and turns. But like I say, it was something I think I picked out last time. What you miss when you don't have him or Skip in the side is someone that instantly looks to get that ball forward. Instantly looks to start an attack. And I don't think it's any coincidence that, Spurs were just constantly attacking because every time they were winning the ball back, it was being quickly recycled. And that's, it's not rocket science. I know I use that expression a lot, but it just seems like it, doesn't it? Sometimes it's a bit like Everton. I've spoken to some of the Everton reporters, and Guesty, who I do the podcast with, is an Everton fan. He makes no attempt to hide that, although he'd probably like to right now. And they were all saying the same thing, which is spot on. It's like, if Tottenham like to play with a bit of space in behind that they can attack, don't play that way, especially when you're a struggling team. Don't go there and think you can play like a Man City or someone like that, because Man City have the quality to still exploit what they do, even if they leave those gaps. But as we saw, Tottenham profited. Whereas Everton, I just didn't know what they were doing. It was so poor. I'd say they were worse than Leeds. I think Leeds at least caused problems for Tottenham. Everton could have played for another 90 minutes and not really caused Spurs any problems. First 15 minutes, like I say, they were kind of had a bit of the possession. They were penning Tottenham in a little bit in their half, but ultimately not really getting close to the Spurs box. And then as soon as Spurs hit a quick fire double, that was it. It was game over already. And I really like the fact that Spurs pushed on in the second half. How many times have we spoken about a Spurs game where they've maybe eased off once they've got a couple of goals in front? And to actually see them going for the throat and showing no mercy whatsoever. It was 5-0, but it could have been 7 or 8-0 on the night. There were a few players missed a few chances. So yeah, terrible Everton, but a good Tottenham. A Conte Tottenham. And that's good. And I do think Bentancur played a big part in it. He understands what Conte wants. Conte really likes him. And this is the thing, I obviously, when we were talking about the transfer window, I did make a point of saying I didn't like the look of a transfer window where you've done nothing and then on the last day go back to your old club with Fabio Paratici. However, that's not to do down the quality or fit of those two players. You can kind of have not two different opinions, but you can have you can think both things. You can think that it's a strategy that wasn't great and there should have been more movement around that. But on the other side, you can also think that yes, completely, the two players fit Tottenham like a glove and the Premier League. They really fit in well. And you wonder whether Conte had a bit of a role in that, because when you look at the suitability of the summer signings, Romero aside, and then you go to the 2 January transfer deadline day signings, it's a bit like night and day, chalk and cheese. It really is, because we're going to talk about Kulusevski, who I'm so blown away with. I'm going to rave about him in a little bit, but Bentancur as well. He's played obviously less minutes because of this little injury. He's had the ankle problem, but really good. And I think, I don't want to get this, not to dig out Harry Winks, but I think Højbjerg plays better when he's alongside Bentancur. I think he does. Whether it's just a difference in the way they play, whether it unlocks something different in him, he doesn't have to do certain tasks. I don't know exactly what it is, but I just feel he looks slightly more comfortable, I think is probably the way to say it. It may just be that the player's out of confidence or anything, but yeah, it worked for me. It did. So, that was the other thing as well. When you think about it, he scored 5 goals Monday night, scored 4 goals at Leeds. Suddenly, the -1 goal difference is like, it's absolutely gone. It's 8, positive 8 goal difference. And Spurs are just bang right up there. I said this ahead of this match, that's the most probably weirdly frustrating thing about Tottenham is, despite their inconsistency, they're right there. They're absolutely right up there. And, again, we're going to talk about Old Trafford a little bit towards the end, but they go there and can somehow break this pattern of win-loss, win-loss. They're really in a strong position. But yeah, we will talk about it a little bit later. I want to talk about wing-backs. 3 of them, certainly. Emerson didn't even come on, did he? So we saw 3 of them, and I thought all 3 contributed and did exactly the kind of things that Conte want. Ryan Sessegnon started the game really well. Scored. Ben Davies put him away down the left, and he just hit a really dangerous low ball. The exact kind of ball you tell young wingers, wing-backs, whatever you want to call them, to put in. Put it into the mixer, as they say. And it was either going to be Kane knocking it home or it was going to be Michael Keane. And Michael Keane, very kindly to Tottenham, chose to smash it into his own net. But it was all about the ball. It was about the quality of the ball into the box, which was near impossible to defend because of the height of it, because of the pace of it. And it was really good. Sessegnon was a little bit mixed after that. He had some good moments where he got forward and linked up well, some nice little runs. But also a little bit sloppy in some of his passing, especially in his own half. Did a few things that were that showed his 21 years old age. Little moments where you think, oh no, don't play that. You don't need to do that. There's no need to do that. Just take a beat, calm kind of thing. And there were a few moments like that. But overall, he was showing again that he is a natural wing back and it does work for him. And then there's an injury. Then there was the injury. Honestly, I was so gutted for him. I was, because this is just going to be the thing, isn't it? That he's got to overcome somehow. Because, was it 6 starts in a row? That's brilliant. Most starts, obviously, by a long way he's had for Tottenham. There was a little interview I read a couple of days before he did with the club where he was talking about how good he was feeling. And honestly, I just watched him sink to the ground. And he was just shaking his head. He was distraught. He put his head down on the grass at one point, his face into the grass. He just knows it looks like it's the hamstring again. It was going to be evaluated yesterday. I haven't heard anything back on that yet, but it's something I'm going to be chasing up, just to find out. Hopefully it's not bad. The only crumb of comfort I'd maybe take was that rather than just come straight off, he was able to just stay on the pitch for another minute or so they could get to half-time, and then Sergio Reguilón could come on after the break. So the fact that maybe he was able to move round suggests it's not something serious and maybe just a slight pull or something tight there. But, you've heard me say this before. My worry with Sessegnon is the fear inside him that every time he wants to run and attack the ball or the box or a player, he just has that in the back of his mind of, oh no, what if I pop my hamstring again? It all started from that one on England under-21 duty with the European Championships, summer before Spurs signed him. And he's just had so many issues with it since. And Delhi went through the same. Delhi had a good 18 months worth of hamstring injuries, but he eventually, pretty much. I don't think we've had a Delhi hamstring injury in a while. So obviously some might say it's because he's not been playing too much. But, I think hopefully it shows Sejong he can get through it. But it just must be soul destroying when that happens. Especially when you've worked so hard. You've got the manager praising you. He's got 2 assists now in the last 2 Premier League games. It really is. It is such a shame. And like I say, fingers crossed it's not too bad. But then Sergio Reguilon came on within 41 seconds of the second half starting, and him coming on the pitch, bang, scores a goal. And it was classic Conte. It was what Conte loves, Kulusevski using his right foot as well. Nice low ball across the box. Everyone misses it. Back post, Reguilon comes in and slams it home. And that's, I should also point out that was Sessegnon's 50th Premier League appearance as well. An assist, but a really sad way to kind of end that as well. It's something that Reguilon needs to do more of, the goal scoring. That is... I've written it down here. Where did I put it down? That is his 2nd goal of the season, which is not a lot. And he's only got 3 assists, I think it is. I don't think, if I'm right, he's had a... When is it? I wrote that one down as well. He hasn't had an assist since early December. Early December was his last assist. For a wing-back, that's not great. It isn't. And the thing with Reguilon, a bit like Emerson, is that he's always been a natural fullback. It's not his thing. He wasn't, he's not been trained to be a wing-back. It's a slightly different role. But what I would say with Reguilon, I think he's got the pace and the technique to be a really good one. He just has to adapt to it. There's a couple of kind of decision-making issues. I think when he gets into the box, we've seen him get there and fluff chances or fluff the final ball. But I think he can do it. I do. I can kind of see that in him. And that'll be a huge confidence boost. The whole aspect of the wing-backs under Conte is, other than being just incredibly energised, the bunny role you've got to be in and being up and down, being a defender, being a winger, you've also got to be in the box on the other side when the ball comes in from the other flank. That is crucial. You've got to be essentially like another striker/attacker at the back post. And that's what Reguilon did absolutely spot on. So that's all you can ask of him, But I've got to say, there is one wing-back who deserves all of the praise, and that is Matt Doherty. And I'm so happy for it to be able to talk in such good ways about him because... you know me. I don't like to pile on players. I hate scapegoating players. And I don't like to see when I get personal abuse on Twitter, people tagging them in. It's just, it's such a summing up of people, I think, when they do that. It really says more about them than the person they're trying to criticise. And I just think Matt Doherty, since he's come to Tottenham, he's played as a fullback, something he hasn't really played as for years. Nuno came along and he was thinking, I could be a wing back again, exactly like I'm meant to be. And Nuno went, I'm playing with a back 4, don't you know? It's like, what? And then finally Conte gets into it. And don't get me wrong, he's had a couple of games where he hasn't really shown what he can do. But I don't think it's any huge coincidence that Matt Doherty is playing in a run of games. He's getting confident. He's playing in his natural position. And he's just put in his best performance in a Spurs shirt by a country mile. I thought he was very good against Leeds. I thought he wasn't that bad against Middlesbrough compared to a lot of other players. But just on Monday night, oh my goodness. I don't think it's any surprise that I've seen WhatsApp messages flying about with there's an image of Maradona and they face-swapped Matt Doherty's face onto it because he was so good. And not only his defending was very good as well, but also his attacking, the creativity of what he was doing was, oh my goodness. It was just, this is the Matt Doherty that Spurs thought they were buying in the summer of 2020. This is the Matt Doherty who only Trent Alexander-Arnold created more chances from the right-back, right-wing-back slot than him in the Premier League. In the first 2 seasons in the Premier League with Wolves. That's the guy that Spurs have been looking for. And he was there on Monday night. I mean, you look at it and you look at, there was he came inside, he was almost playing like a central midfielder at one point, and he hit this outside of the football to Son, which Son wasn't able to finish. Then moments later, you got that pass to Kane for Kane's first goal, which had to be so exact. And it showed such quick thinking as well, because the ball just suddenly broke and he just surveyed the whole picture in a split second and bang, hit that ball. Perfect weight as well into Kane's pass, beat the offside trap, goal. And then he did it again with a probably, I'm actually torn on which was the better pass, because one was this really cleverly thought out first time pass, as in thought out in the moment, but the second one was, and I don't think there's any coincidence being that these two are big golf buddies, Kane and Doherty. Doherty he just chipped this little flighted ball, like a little golf shot, like a pitching wedge kind of shot. Just floated it right into Kane's path, so that all Kane had to do was then volley it home with his left foot. He just met it. It just met his stride perfectly. And I'm going to talk about Kane in a bit. So yes, that was not an easy finish, but you know what I mean. The ball was so good, he kind of just had to meet it. No, I'm so happy for Matt Doherty. He was excellent. He was really, really good, and you can feel that he's starting to feel like he's contributed. You can feel like he can now be a bit more. There's more of a presence on social media, and there's more. You can see him kind of shouting and celebrating with the fans and stuff. And you just feel, it's not that he felt like a fraud or anything, but by his own admission, that he still, even out of his normal position, he wasn't showing what he could do. There was little glimpses, like against Leicester end of last season, I thought he was very good. I think against Leicester again away this season, he started to show what he could do. But it's just, you could see that a different player, confidence does that. And that's the irony, when people lay into players and they absolutely slate them, it's like a vicious circle, because they do read, whatever they say, they will see some comments. Of course they will. Not all of them, because they will mute, they will block, they will do all of this sort of stuff. But especially when it's shouted at match, you will hear these things. You will hear the of the crowd, when someone plays a bad pass. And I understand that, because you're frustrated. And it is frustrating when someone's making mistakes and you know they're going to make it. But it's a vicious circle with the confidence. And now you're seeing a man who is growing in confidence. He's getting lots of... Conte says, and he said this a couple of times, that Matt Doherty is probably the most improved player since he came to the club. Because he's a bit like Joe Rodon in that everything you hear Conte say about, he just works hard. Even if he's not playing, he doesn't kick up a fuss, he doesn't grumble, he doesn't tantrum, he doesn't say, I'm not bothering in this training session. He gives 100% all the time so that he's ready for the moment. And that's why I think it's such a lovely payoff when this sort of stuff happens. Conte's quotes on the fullbacks, he spoke about Sessegnon first. He said, Ryan Sessegnon, we have to make an evaluation tomorrow. I hope nothing serious, as it is a muscular problem. I hope nothing serious, because every time this player is having continuity of performance and then something wrong or a little injury. I hope it's nothing serious. I was happy for Sergio Reguilón, because after COVID he came in and he scored. He's another player who's a lot of space for improvement, and my expectation that he improves his level. Matt Doherty is another player who I'd like to underline the improvement, and then also we have Emerson. Now the competition in the team is important. I think now I'm starting to see a bit of competition in the team, and if you want to become strong, it's important to have competition and not players that they are sure they're going to play every game. They have to deserve it, and the competition to be very good to improve our level. And that's interesting, because he did tell me ahead of the game, I asked him about Reguilón, whether he was having any after effects from his COVID bout, and he said yes, he did. He did have a few. He said, but also he needs to fight and fight his way back into this team. He doesn't just automatically get back into the team. And you can see why, because I think Sessegnon was showing some good displays and was starting to do that again. But then Reguilón came in and he grabbed his chance. He made a point. Motivating. That's what it was all about. And that was good to see. And just delighted for Matt Doherty, honestly. It'd be lovely if he has a real renaissance now. Because if he can do that sort of stuff, you don't really let him go. I'd actually go as far to say that, because let's be honest, he's 30 now. You're not going to get a lot of money for him. He's not going to be one of the club's biggest earners. I think he actually, I think if, again, it's a big if, he has to continue this kind of little run he's on right now. But if he does, I think he's a player that you keep around. I really do. And I think he fights for that wing-back slot with whoever comes in. By all means, they may want to make Emerson Royale work, but I don't know. It depends whether you're looking at it financially. Financially, you're still going to probably be able to get decent money for Emerson Royale if you did want to move him on after only a year. The flip side is he's only 23 years old and he probably can be improved and developed. So I think if Doherty, though, keeps this going, I'd be loath to let him go. I would. It's early days, don't get me wrong, if he continues this. So we'll see what happens there. But not only about the wing-backs, front three, again, was superb. There's a lovely blend and a balance to that front three. Son has the movement, the speed. He pulls defences all over the place. You've got Kulusevski, who's very strong, physical, but has that playmaker side to him. He can pick out a pass. He's very direct. He's got that little... in that regard, he's a little bit like Eriksen in that he works incredibly hard, but is also a playmaker. Often this kind of, maybe it's a stereotype, but you often think of playmakers being a little bit more of a luxury player. And he, like Eriksen, is definitely not. He works incredibly hard, tracks back, does a lot of work around the pitch. And Harry Kane. And Harry Kane's the one who puts the killer touch on it, whether it's the crucial ball, the pass, whether it's the shot that flies into the goal. The balance is really nice. Let's talk about Kulusevski. I can't wait any longer. I've been so impressed with him, honestly. He's been so good. And you just have to remind yourself, a bit like Session, he's 21. He's 21. And, when you look back and you saw some people on social media writing him off after his first 20 minutes as substitute, it's like, it's football, isn't it? It's absolutely football nowadays. And we haven't got patience to go beyond 21 minutes. But you look at him now, he's taken to the Premier League like a duck to water. What is it? It's 2. I've got it here. 2 goals. Written down. What's the point of writing stuff down? You can't even see it. 2 goals, 3 assists in his 5 starts in the Premier League. That's a fantastic start. It really is. And he hasn't looked out of place at all. He's strong enough to handle the physical demands of the Premier League. But he's also got these kind of very quick feet. There was a few moments where you could see he's very good at shifting the ball from one foot to the other quite quickly. He's got a really a delicate touch for a big man. A good touch for the big man. Was that what it used to be? Good feet? Oh, I can't remember the expression. Someone will now be watching this and write it out in the comments, which will very much help me. But then you end up getting 25 people all saying the same thing. He's very direct to his play. He looks to drive through every time he gets the ball. He does like to still cut in on his left foot, but that's understandable. You get players who play on the left that like to cut. Sonny likes to do that as well. But what I would say is he did show us that he can also use his right foot, not least the ball to Reguilon for that goal. It was a really good one. And, he was involved in Sonny's goal as well. Obviously, him and Kane linked up and he prodded the ball through just nicely into his path. He showed that little good feet that kind of then put Son through for another pass on the right-hand side as well. He's looking really, really good. It's quite exciting to kind of think about what you can do as Conte continues to work with him on the training pitch. At just 21, if he's already doing that at this stage, and he looks so comfortable, he's only going to get better. And if he keeps, again, a bit like Doherty, if he keeps going as he is, it's going to be a bargain deal. Because you look at the finances involved. Spurs have got him on loan for 18 months. For this part of the season, they're only paying 2.5 million for him. That's all it is. Next season, 5.8 for the loan. And then, obviously, there's an obligation to buy if he meets certain conditions, whether that's appearances, probably is going to be appearance-based, I'd imagine. Or if he doesn't meet those, there's also an option. Both are 29.2 million and payable within 5 years. But that's a bargain, honestly. If he continues what he is, he could really be a Premier League star if he keeps going as he is. Because this is the beauty of, players that come from foreign lands, they often have such differing amounts of time they need to adapt. Some may never adapt to the Premier League. Some may need a year. Some need 2 years. Some can already have played in the Premier League, yet have to adapt again to a different club. For Kulusevski to come in and make such an impact, and I think Bentancur to a degree as well, but Kulusevski really, really has made an impact. It says a lot about him. It says a lot about his adaptability. I think he's already quite popular within the group as well, Decky, as he's called. Yeah, really good. Really, really exciting to see kind of where he goes. And do you know what? I think he will prove to be really good for Sonny as well. Obviously for Kane as well. We've already seen him assisting Kane. But the reason I say Sonny is because it's all about that ball going to the back post as well, where you'll find that Sonny will often come into. And this isn't a bash of Lucas Moura. But all I would say is with Lucas, the stats, the numbers show quite clearly that in the Premier League, assists have not really been his thing. They haven't. He's direct, he drives, he maybe has a shot, but assist-wise, it's probably not his thing. He's trying to improve it. Last 18 months or so, I think there's definitely been an improvement there. But if you're looking for him to be the man that assists Son, probably not. And Kane, as well. But what I would say is Kulusevski, I actually think he looks for the pass first rather than the shot. And that's where they're going to benefit. We're seeing it already. The assists are already started to rack up. And he could have had more with people having better finishing in a fair few of the recent games against City, Leeds, and this as well. He really could have. So, good stuff. Really, honestly. Yeah, very good player. He is. I've got to talk about Sonny. Sonny had another funny game. His movement was excellent. His movement was really good. It probably got slightly, because of the chances he missed, it might have gone a little bit unseen how good his movement was. Not only to be in a position for those chances, but just he did a lot of runs that would pull defenders away and leave space for others. There was a lot of unselfish running as well. He was really good in that respect. And I think the fact that Everton's shape kept kind of falling to pieces was a lot because Son was pulling them all over the place. However, it still feels to me like he's lacking confidence when he goes through on goal. He's such a funny player in this with Son. I've said this before, so apologies if you've heard me say it before. But I feel with Sonny, naturally, his technique is so good that even when he's low on confidence, his technique allows him to score goals when they come straight into him, and it's an instant snap decision. You've seen him like the goal against Leeds, for example. He won't make mistakes of those shots. They will just bang straight in the goal, and that's why we've seen such consistency. I think in his numbers. He is fourth highest scorer in the Premier League right now. I think there's a stat out there. Guesty was telling me yesterday something about he's only Salah, I think, has been involved in more goals in the Premier League, I think. I don't know if it's a certain amount of games or the whole season. And I think a lot of that speaks towards the technical excellence of Son. That even when his confidence isn't great, he's still going to put away those chances that just come straight to him. For me, the lack of confidence shows when he has a second or two to think about what he's going to do. And that's where I feel we see a different Son to what we know he can be. So, straight off the bat, who was it putting through early on? I think it was Doherty and Kulusevski down the right. Son ran through into the middle, was through on goal, just had, I think, maybe one defender in front of him, the keeper, and he kind of hesitated and allowed another defender to come back and take the ball off his feet. It might have actually been Gordon rather than the defender. Then he had that. Then he had the goal, which, even Sonny will admit, it was a terrific run, great position, but it wasn't the best shot. It was, when sometimes strikers are low in confidence, and this is going to sound really pathetic, but yes, I am or was a striker back in my Sunday league days, and we're very much supposed to be at the different levels, and I'm not comparing myself to anyone, but kind of as a striker, that when you're lacking in confidence, your main first thought is, I've just got to put it on target. I've got to put it on target. Whereas when you're full of confidence, you will go for the corners. And it's a slightly different thing. I just felt that with Sonny with that shot. Again, not comparing myself to Sonny. in my dreams could I ever be like Sonny. But when he goes through, it almost felt like he was just trying to hit the ball on target. And maybe fortunately for him, Pickford made an absolute mess of it. He kind of fell down and it squirmed, squeezed under him. It wasn't a great shot, but it did its job because Pickford was so poor. And then after that, you had Doherty put him away with that lovely ball, 1-on-1, and Pickford came out and saved. And I think that's the slight difference with Sonny when he's not got his full confidence. Whereas like Kane, you saw him run through for his first goal. There was no thought of, he might not score this. You just assumed he was. Your only thought was he offside? And that's the interesting thing. Probably most people weren't even thinking, will he score, will he score? Because you just knew he was going to. And that's, again, Sonny's confidence will come back. That's the quality of Sonny that I think maybe people underestimate, is that even when he's not playing well, and, against Middlesbrough, he had an absolute shocker. That was probably one of his worst games for Spurs. But that's the quality of Son, that even in a game against Everton, wasn't at his best, yet he's still pulling Everton all over the place and still ends up with a goal. And that says a lot about him. But yeah, I think that's also something that excites me, is that there's a lot of excitement going on in this, is that Kulusevski can only get better. And I actually think Son can get better in terms of, some people point to his numbers, but I think those numbers can be even higher. If we get Sonny in full cry, all bets are off, honestly, seriously. You're not going to be able to contain him. And if that front three continues to develop like I feel it is developing, it's going to be superb. And there's a little funny moment with Sonny as well. When he came off, he went off along the... as they always do, they go and high-five all the staff and the players in the dugout. He got to Romero, and Romero just grabbed his hand as if he was like shaking it, and then just pulled him over. So he had Sonny sprawled across the three of them. I think it was Galini, Emerson, and Romero. He was across all their laps, and Romero just suddenly turned into like, that annoying big brother who's having a bit of a play fight with you. He was banging him on the back while Sonny's like laughing away. He started grabbing Sonny's hair and pulling it. It was all a joke, just for anyone that maybe the translation of this isn't great. Anyone watching maybe from South Korea. He was not beating up Son. It was very much like a play fight. And it was really nice. It was one of those moments that shows Romero clearly is very much fitted in. It shows how, once again, Sonny is just popular with everyone. It was a fun little moment. It really was. And Galini started bashing him on the back as well. Just this sight of him kind of prostrate across all of them. Romero had this yellow card that if you didn't see it, I'm sure you did, on Richarlison. It was so late. It might as well have been after the final whistle. It was classic Argentina against Brazil. I'm going to take you out moment. Oh my goodness. It was... Thankfully, it wasn't really a dangerous tackle. It was just a very cynical one. And yeah, it was like... And the funny thing was, Romero was like, kind of seemed to be trying to claim he got the ball. It's like, are you kidding? The ball went by an hour ago. It's like a train, You're on the next like 10:20 to Liverpool Street, and the 10 o'clock one went ages ago. Oh, it was mad. It was absolutely mad. But the other member of the front three, Harry Kane, wow. And it's interesting that Conte picked up on this as well. My feeling right now is that Kane is kind of epitomising Spurs right now, because every other game he's been unplayable. He's absolutely been unplayable. And I mean, you look at it: Brighton, Man City, Leeds, Everton. It was good against Leicester as well. All of those, he's been pretty much unplayable. Spurs won all 5 of them. The other games, he's been quieter. Spurs have lost all of the other ones. It's like, in 2022 we're talking about. He's definitely coming back. He is, you can see that. There's 7 goals in the last 7 games. He's doing those wonderful things when he drops deep, and there was just some moments on Monday night where I just watched him go into the corner with the ball with 3 or 4 Everton players around him. And it was a little bit like you used to get with Moussa Dembele. You kind of feel like they're not going to get that ball. he's actually going to take that away from him. He does, and then he hits a crossfield ball, or he did a lovely cross for Eric Dyer to head against the crossbar as well. Eric Dyer, by the way, playing with a really heavy cold, I know some people go, ooh, he had a cold. But when you're a footballer and you have to play to a really high level and you need the high energy and the ability to breathe as well, it does play a part. So, a little bit fair play to him. Another clean sheet as well for him and the defence. But no, Kane was... he was incredible. And, when I say about those games where he's been quieter, that's on the rest of the team to step up as well. If you're going to have Kane unplayable in every other game, then it's on the rest of the team to step up in that other game for him, the other games. Because those 2 goals, I'm going to get this exactly right, 175th and 176th in the Premier League, which takes him up to 6th in the all-time list. He's gone above Thierry Henry, which I saw brought a lot of daft, angry comments, like arguments between Arsenal and Spurs fans about it. It's like, he's scored more goals than him. That's what he's done. I think it was slightly slower as well. You can't compare. There's 2 very, very different players with very different traits and attributes and weaknesses. I think the best way to say it, they're just both world-class strikers. They are and were. Yes. I don't get when people get so angry about stuff like that. Just enjoy the fact that you've got to witness 2 superb players, whoever they played for. Oh yeah, and actually he's now 1 behind Frank Lampard, who ironically, of course, was the manager of the team that he just ripped apart. It was very good. That first goal, like I say, ran through. There was no doubt that he was going to put that away. And when you actually look back, the run was perfect. I can't remember who was playing him on, but it was bad defending. It was a bit like Emerson against Middlesbrough. It was kind of stuck out, that player. And then the second one, another volley with his left foot, ball coming over from behind. Slightly further out than the Leeds one, but just technique-wise, so good. So good. What is that? That's an internet meme. So good. I can't remember what it is. But yeah, really, 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 really good. And yeah, Conte as well. He said exactly the same kind of thing about his performances coinciding with Tottenham's up and downs. Here's his quotes. We are talking about a world-class striker, but at the same time, I tell you, after Man City, he scored twice, and Harry didn't score against Burnley. At Leeds, he scored again, and he didn't score against Middlesbrough. Tonight, he scored, and my expectation now is to see on Saturday a great game, not only for Harry, but for all the team. And I think that's it now. You need Harry Kane to now turn up at Old Trafford. You need him to continue this incredible kind of something. Honestly, the touches, the turns, the control, the ability to see a pass, the ability to finish. When he's on song, Spurs don't lose. They just don't, because he runs the game for them. I'm trying to think of a game where he played really well and Spurs lost. Honestly, I struggle. And I think he needs to know that, how much of an impact he can have in terms of, even if he's slightly quiet, the team look to him for their inspiration. He's that much of a transformative player for the team. He's honestly so good. He's on 241 goals for the club now. Means he only needs 26 more to beat Jimmy Greaves' 266. That's where, you'd hope that he wants to beat that record. Obviously there's a lot to still happen this season, and whether he wants to leave again in the summer, we'll have to see. But there's got to be a temptation to do that. I know the Premier League record is the one he really, really wants, but how cool it would also be to be Tottenham's all-time goal scorer. And, 26... he does that. He'd do that, you'd think, early to midway through next season, if he continues in his current vein. Here's a couple of quotes from Kane. He spoke after the game. I feel like I'm in a great place. I'm 28 now. I feel like physically I'm in a really good place. I feel mentally, my game understanding and my awareness on the pitch is at a really high level from just gaining experience over the years. Antonio has definitely given me more strings to my bow. I'm always someone who tries to improve. When I'm 35, 36, I'll still be trying to improve. That's just my mindset. For sure, I'm in a good place. It's nice to be scoring goals, winning games, helping the team. Overall, it's about working hard and keeping my head down. There's always stuff I can improve on, whether it's finishing, hold-up play, passing, and that's what I'll continue to do. But for sure, I feel like there's more to come, and I'm excited for that. So should we be if he sticks around at Tottenham, because I do feel like he's a striker hitting his peak now. I always remember when there's various people and journalists as well that were saying he was done, that he was finished. So far from finished, honestly. It's just been terrific. And there's lots of other good quotes. He spoke really well after the game. It's nice that we're kind of getting to get him talking again to the media, because obviously the last couple of years, maybe last year or so, he hasn't done too many interviews, maybe because of what happens when he does, I guess. But yeah, no, he kind of very much echoed Conte's message of, yeah, we want the top four. The ambition is top four. Let's go for it. No more excuses. No more hiding behind the fact that we're trying to improve or we've got a new manager. You know, we're 4 months in now. Let's go for it. Harry Kane is ambitious. You know, they have to go for it now. And I love the fact that he's kind of shouting that from the rooftops as well, really. And talking of Kane, his old-time collaborator, Dele Alli returned. It was a lovely moment after the game. I managed to just kind of actually, in a rare moment of, because I had a tiny bit of time where I was waiting for the press conference to go down to the press conference, and I just was able to snap this lovely moment where, look, let's take it back a little bit. So Dele Alli, this was his return. Obviously left on the final day of the January transfer window. Didn't get a chance to say goodbye other than a social media post. You know, was it 7 years at the club? 2015 again. Yeah, 7 years, let's say. Maybe just under, because I think he came in eventually came midway through. 6.5 years. So the crowd, when he was warming up, they were applauding him. When he started, was about to come on, the whole stadium rocked with his chant. It was lovely. And then at the end of the game, we had this kind of moment where you could tell that he was obviously gutted about the result, because his new team had just been absolutely dismantled by his old team. But he obviously wanted to do something to mark the occasion. So what he did was quite right. He kind of very first made his way over to the Everton fans. He was like, went over to applaud them, because some of those hardy Everton fans, honestly, they'd stuck to the end. There was a few that, I think after the third goal, decided to go home, which is understandable when you've got such a long trip back. But he made sure of going over to the ones that stuck around, applauding them. And then as he was coming back, you had Kane went over and hugged him. Son went over and hugged him. Dyer came out as well and gave him a hug. Hopefully didn't give him his cold. And then you could just see this moment where it's a bit like, what do I do now? This is kind of a little bit awkward. I want to do this, but would it be disrespectful to the Everton fans? I don't know. And then enter stage left, Hugo Lloris, club captain, saviour of the moment, who just came over to him, gave him a hug, put his arm around him, and just like said, "You're coming with me." And he just led him over to the South Stand where the majority of the remaining Spurs fans were. And it was lovely. He kind of just brought him over and essentially just like shoved him, like, do it, kind of thing. And the crowd all sang his chant and he applauded, he said goodbye, and it was lovely. It was really, really nice. And he kind of, as he came back, was applauding all sides that were still there as well. Because, whatever you want to say about Dele's final years, which were difficult for him, like I say, he did have the aftermath of those injuries. He lost his place, he lost his way a little bit. He lost kind of, I think there just wasn't a position for him so much anymore at Tottenham. But all of that should not mask what a contribution he made to Tottenham. As a young man to come into that team, and a bit like we were saying about Kulusevski, and he was even younger, Dele. He came straight in and was a Premier League star. He was. He was one of the best young players in Europe. When you think peak Pochettino, you think Dele Alli in that team. You see Dele Alli scoring against the likes of Chelsea and Arsenal and Man City and Man United. There was a big game. Dele Alli was scoring goals in it for you. He was a terrific young player for Tottenham. So, again, it's another one. I really hate it when I see kind of animosity to him, because it's like, I saw even some people are like, oh, why should I even say goodbye to him? He's left. What a waster, all of this sort of stuff. It's like, no. He did terrific things for the club. He really did. That it didn't work is for a number of reasons. Some Dele's fault, some other people's fault. And, I think you just kind of have to want to wish him the best now, because not only, even if you want to be, in one way, you want to see talented players be great again. It would be wonderful if he was. If you want to be cynical, from a financial point of view, if Delhi does well, it benefits Tottenham because there's a lot of add-ons and performance-related clauses that will give Spurs money out of this deal to Everton, which begins as a free transfer but becomes anything up to almost 40 million. It's quite a lot. So yeah, Spurs fans want him to do well from that respect as well. But I thought it was lovely. It was a send-off he deserved. The final seasons were not what he wanted or the fans wanted or the club wanted, but you can't erase what he did for Tottenham Hotspur. Honestly, he was such a good young player, and I'm intrigued to see how it works from Everton because he's not started a game there yet. I wonder whether after that tonking that it ends up benefiting him because he gets a little run in the team. Again, we've spoken about these other players like Matt Doherty. Sometimes you just need that confidence, and maybe that's what Delhi needs, and we'll see him get back on track. I really hope so. So now we have the top four. We have some exciting stuff to look forward to again. Yes, there's no trophies to play for, but I do genuinely think, and I think this is what Conte clearly thinks as well, Tottenham were able to get top four this season after the mess that has happened. I think it is a huge achievement for Conte. You always had Jose Mourinho would often say that finishing second, I think it was with Man U, was as good as some of his trophy wins because of the scale of the achievement. And I think Conte getting Spurs back into the top four, I'm not saying it's comparable to that, but it certainly would be a big achievement. And I think there's so much more to it as well. Because I think if you were to get in the top four, then you're building a huge foundation block that wasn't there before. And I think it means a lot more then to Spurs' financial pull, their confidence, the whole mood around the place. I think it's then easier to keep Conte and then also much easier to keep Kane. Kane said afterwards, that's where we want to be playing. We want, as players, want to be playing in the Champions League. I've got more Conte quotes for you because we were talking about Old Trafford and stuff. This was within the long 5-minute answer to me. I want to tell you what I said to my players. Okay, this is the past. Enjoy the game tonight, but from tomorrow you have to think about Saturday's game against United. They're a really strong team. A team that, in my opinion, a squad that is ready to fight for the Premier League and every competition they play in. It will be a real challenge for us, and I want to see the answer about my players and also myself. So what he's saying, the question is, are you going to do this again where you're going to win-loss, or are you going to show that you want the top four? He's laid that down. He's absolutely laid that down to them. And there's no excuses. There's really not, because it would be the perfect time to shed this silly win-loss thing. Because, he does have more time. Often you can tell with Spurs from the first 10, 15 minutes or so what kind of Tottenham you're going to get. Ironically, against Everton, it's probably the one that actually broke that rule, because they looked a little bit off the pace in the first 15 minutes and then just suddenly changed it. But on the whole, you can often tell what you're going to get. And like I say, he's got more time now. He's got more time to prepare for these games. They would have only needed probably Tuesday as a recovery day. And now from Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, he can start properly getting his tactics and preparations for this United match. United obviously will have an extra day of preparation, and they'll want to bounce back obviously after the 4-1 defeat to City. But Spurs have to take the confidence. I know there's always there's going to be a reaction. They're going to bounce back, a bit like Spurs did at Man City. But you've also got to take the good will, the good momentum, the morale from the victory against Everton as well, because it was very good. Interesting, Conte did talk about having that more time. He said, when I have more time, more days to prepare the game, then you can plan a problem and arrive in the right moment physically, tactically, mentally to play an important game. I said to you before, when we have 4 or 5 days, it was then difficult to play against us. For sure, I repeat, when you stay for a long time with one team, then the players know your philosophy, and it's different. And now we're going day by day to improve, working, but on Saturday at the same time we have to play a game for 3 points. I think that I have the possibility to have 1 month in pre-season to work with my players about my idea. Now, after 4.5 months, I'm starting to see what we're working on. For me, it's a pleasure when the players enjoy to play football, not only to win, but at the same time to find the solutions that we find during the training sessions. For sure, we can improve, and we have a lot of space for improvement. But now I said to the players that we've reached a good level, and for this reason, now it's right to take the responsibility. And now, with United, Arsenal, West Ham, and the other teams that want to fight for the top four, we have to go into the situation and get the best. He said it there because they go and get a positive result against Man U. Suddenly, Spurs are in a position, because of their games in hand as well, which don't mean points, I know, but it puts them in a strong position, especially, I think you've only really then got Arsenal, who still have the same amount of games played. Yet, looking at the run-in, I'd say Arsenal's is perhaps the toughest out of that top four bunch. They've got some pretty tricky games coming up. It's not to say they may win them. You know, they look like they're getting a bit of momentum now. However, there are some tough games and some away ones as well. It would be a huge achievement. And it would, I think, when you've got this really defining summer coming up, if Spurs were able to get the top four, that's a big kind of, like I say, foundation stone put in there for the summer. But let's see. Still early days. You know, who I feel deserve it the most is the fans. You know, there's a lot of talk about, you know, after a game, especially like the one against Middlesbrough, the fans could have been forgiven on a Monday night, just thinking, stuff this. But, you know, 59,647 of them turned up at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. It was technically a sellout. I think, obviously, some of the those missing seats would have been, I don't know, maybe just people that didn't actually use their ticket on the day, or maybe Everton fans as well. Maybe they didn't take their full allocation. I'm not sure what they took as well. But yeah, fans will always support their team, and that's what you saw. And fair play to them for doing it. And you know what? That's why I wasn't particularly impressed with the season ticket renewal stuff that came out this week. If you haven't seen it, Spurs have opening their season ticket renewal window. However, the deadline closes on April 29th. Look, sorry, I should say the positive first. The positive first, they're freezing season ticket prices for next season. That's the right thing to do. I've seen some people still wanting to go further and saying they should be reduced because of how rubbish Spurs have been. I get the frustration, but I don't think you'll find very many football clubs out there who will actually bring their season ticket prices down. Especially as, again, it's dependent on Conte, perhaps, but they could be better next season as well. But look, what I don't particularly like the April 29th deadline. I do think it's a bit, how do I put this? Those more cynical than me might suggest that having your deadline a month before the season ends, it's perhaps getting people on board, locked in, and their money in the bank before they know what's happening in the summer. You know, because worst case scenario, Antonio Conte could decide to go. Harry Kane could want to leave again. And that way you're locked into spending all of that money for a team that could be hugely in flux next season. It could be completely opposite. It could go the other way. Spurs could get top four, Conte could stay, Harry Kane could stay, sign a new contract, whatever. It could be fantastic. It does work both ways. But, yeah, I'm not a huge fan of that. Almost being a month before the season ends. I was trying to look back, actually, and compare it with various ones. The last 2 years were really difficult to compare to because they were both pandemic kind of years where everything was a bit delayed because they didn't really know about it was all so uncertain. I think last year it closed on June the 3rd, but that was because it opened much later as well because they weren't sure about, what they were going to be able to do exactly. And it was the same with the previous year. I mean, the best comparison perhaps pre-pandemic was 2019. The renewals opened on, funny enough, April 29th, and the deadline was May 16th. So Spurs could argue it's a bigger window this time. But, I don't know. It just feels too early for me. I mean, 2018, that was a difficult one. That was a new stadium switch over. So, yeah, that was all done in phases. So that wasn't really like one big window. I looked back, I went all the way back to 2015, which also had an April 30th deadline. Also, 1 day extra deadline. So that was probably the earliest one I could find most recently. And it was interesting that the Tottenham Hotspur Supporter Trust back then urged them to delay it by a couple of weeks. And they're doing the same this year. I wanted to read out the little message they put on Twitter. As we told the club, the reaction to bringing the season ticket renewal deadline forward to April 29th has been overwhelmingly negative. We're urging the club to respect its fans and move the deadline. Any fans wanting to lend their voices can email supporterservices@tottenhamhotspur.com. I agree. I do agree. I think the Spurs just have this problem sometimes, maybe a lot of the time, in reading the room. I don't know who makes these decisions, whether it's ratified at the top, whether there's people just going, yeah, just nodding at the top when decisions are made. I don't know. But it's just almost like you just feel like there should be someone in there. And maybe this is what this fan, eventually the fan coming onto the board will do. But you just need someone in there who just goes, come on, guys, lads and ladies, come on. Really? Is this the way you want to go? You know how the reaction is going to be? I do think sometimes decisions are made without any real understanding of not only Tottenham fans, but just how humans react in general. Some weird decisions go on sometimes. And I think of all the summers that you want the Spurs fans on board, this is one. Because like I said before, if Conte goes in the summer and Kane wants to leave, all of these fingers are going to be pointing very clearly at Daniel Levy at the very top of the club. So, you kind of really want to be keeping them as sweet as possible. Because if you get thousands of fans who have already spent all of their money and they feel that you've let them down and you're wasting their money, they're going to react very badly and it's going to become very, very toxic very quickly. So I'm surprised. I am surprised at that. Look, I get it from a financial point of view. Get the money in and perhaps they see that as money that goes towards transfer fees. It may well be that's what they're looking at. I just don't know whether it's the cleverest idea in the world. I really didn't. I think we'll find out. We'll see whether there is any difference made and whether they do change their mind or not. They have done U-turns in the past, but whether we will get that on this one or not, I don't know. But it's going to be a big few weeks. It's going to tell us a lot. It's going to tell us not only that, and whether Spurs can learn to read the room. It's going to tell us a lot about Conte and his team and which direction they're heading in, and maybe give us more of a glimpse of what the summer we can expect is going to be. It's going to be fascinating. Before I go, loan roundup. I want to do a little one because I know some people seem to quite like them. Jack Clark scored an absolute cracker for Sunderland as they beat Fleetwood. Look it up if you can on social media. Lovely rocket finish from the edge of the box. Really, really nice goal. Hopefully that will do wonders for his confidence. Talking of confidence, Troy Parrott, 2 goals for MK Dons. One a header, one a drive. He was playing against Cheltenham, which was really good for him because he's been working incredibly hard. Getting lots of praise for performances, but without the goals. And interesting, actually, I got a quote. The MK Dons boss, this was reported in MK Citizen, Liam Manning, said it was thoroughly deserves his performance. He's worked so hard for the team recently. It's great to see him get the goals tonight. We've been consistent with him, telling him to keep doing what he's doing. He wants to contribute and score goals, but it's so much more than that. The front players set the tone defensively for us, and the quality he has and the way he works, the goals will come. So that's really good for Troy Parrott. That's been just the missing thing for him. And just to get a couple of goals, and hopefully that's a snowball effect now, and we'll see him kind of crack on. Because, he's had a really good season of development. Sometimes when you're away from the eyes of the fans, you don't really see exactly what's happening. And he's been developing very nicely. He has, not in an eye-catching way, but he's getting the experience he needs with MK Dons. He could have been coming up against Kiona Tete, who's obviously plays for Cheltenham now, but unfortunately he missed the match with a little kind of nagging ankle injury he's had. So hopefully I think he'll be back soon. Another guy that missed out with injuries, Tanguy Ndombele. He missed Lyon's game at Lorient with a muscular injury, but I think he's already back for I think they've got a Europa League game. They've got a European game certainly this midweek that he's already back and available for. So nothing too serious there. Brian Hill has had a great week. He obviously helped Valencia get to the Copa del Rey final. We had that scene of the fans all chanting up at the balcony for him to stay at Valencia permanently. I think he got a couple of minutes from the bench. They gave him a little bit of a rest in the last game. But he's just going great guns there. Giovanni Celso had a tough one. Villarreal lost to Osasuna, so he didn't have the greatest of weeks. Pape Matar Sarr was back on the bench for Metz. They lost. I've written that one down. He came off the bench 65th minute as Metz lost 1-0 to Saint Etienne. He had actually been in starting games again, but as he's a young player, 19, that's going to happen. Sometimes he's going to be in and out of the team. And again, another one who probably you're not hearing big things about, but the experience of playing for a struggling team, facing a battle, is a good physical test, I think, and mentally for when he comes to the Premier League in the summer. Who else? Cameron Carter-Vickers. His terrific loan continues. He volleyed home a goal. His third of the season. He scored against St Mirren at the weekend. It's been, honestly, such a successful move. Andrei Postecoglou called him outstanding after the game. I'd be shocked if Celtic don't buy him at the end of his loan. They've got an option to buy him. They'd be mad if they don't because he's smashing it there. Noel John, still waiting for his senior debut at Charlton. It'd be interesting to know what Spurs think about that loan move because he's getting experience of being in and around the first team. He's just been an unused sub on the bench. So probably not exactly what they'd hoped for. He's not really getting the game time at all, any minutes at all. Just that one, I think he played an under-23s game for them when he first arrived. So yeah, it's not quite working out. Hopefully, he'll get a chance and he'll take it. Kakba Kulowitz, the goalkeeper, was on the bench again for Pottersbar Town. He played the first game he went there and he's been a sub-keeper since. That's down in the non-league. And Alfie Whiteman's going through his pre-season with Degerfors in Sweden at the moment. So yeah, I think that's everyone. I think that's all the loan players. So there you go, that's the loan roundup. I think we covered plenty. That might actually be my longest video ever. 1 hour and 11 minutes at the moment. So hopefully we covered everything in that, because if we didn't, I did a very bad job if I spoke for that long and didn't cover it all. But yeah, Old Trafford this weekend. Press conference on Friday. It's lovely to be back in-person press conferences. In-person press conferences before and after matches now, which means we get a lot more out of Conte with that face-to-face contact. Face-to-face contact sounds like we're kissing. We're not. Face-to-face is probably just what I meant to say. And then Old Trafford on Saturday, which I think I'm driving to and from. Again, a bit like I did with Man City. It's a long old drive, but hopefully, like the City game, it'll be worth it. Because Tottenham need to break this run. They need to break the pattern. They need to win at Old Trafford. Something like the 6-1 would be wonderful from a couple of years back under Jose Mourinho. That would be awesome. But quite frankly, I'd take a scrappy 1-0 with the goal coming off one of the players' backsides, quite frankly. It would be perfect. So yeah, hopefully good stuff to talk about again next week when we do this. Might try and do one on Sunday. We'll see how knackered I am after the drive back. But as always, stay safe, stay healthy, look after yourselves, and I shall catch you later. Goodbye.